George Armstrong Custer was born in New Rumley, Ohio on December 5, 1839. He had 5 immediate siblings, as well as several other brothers and sisters from a previous marriage of his mother's. He was raised in Ohio and Michigan, first attending Hopedale Normal College. In 1858, Custer was admitted to West Point. He nearly didn't graduate from the academy due to an excess of accumulated demerits, many of which were earned for playing pranks on fellow cadets. When he did graduate, Custer was last in his class. However, because of the outbreak of the Civil War, the Union Army was in desperate need for officers, and so Custer was called to serve. The Civil War was when Custer started to distinguish himself and gain a reputation. He was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the 2nd U.S. Cavalry and immediately entered combat, fighting at the First Battle of Bull Run. After the battle, he was reassigned, now becoming part of the 5th U.S. Cavalry. Custer continued to be present at the major battles, being present at both Gettysburg and at the Appomattox Courthouse for the final surrender. In fact, many historians believe that Custer's relentless pursuit of Lee's forces actually forced the general into an early surrender. By the end of the war, Custer had gained a reputation as an effective leader, even though his units oftentimes had higher death rates than that of the average.
Little Bighorn is arguably the most disastrous event in American military history. Manifest destiny and the westward push of civilization forced the Native Americans to relocate away from their homes into reservations in the Black Hills and various other locations around the country. When gold was discovered in the Black Hills, miners flooded into the area with hopes of striking rich. Upset by the intrusion and driven by the purpose of preventing the further destruction of their sacred lands, the Sioux turned to violence to drive out the miners. In order to quell the Sioux, the United States dispatched its Army's 7th Cavalry Regiment. The 7th Cavalry camped outside of the main Sioux village and prepared for battle. Custer wanted to attack the village simultaneously from the north and south ends. In order to do so, he divided his forces into 3 groups, led by Captain Benteen, Major Reno, and himself. Custer would take his group upriver and attack from the north. Reno would cross the river and attack from the south. Meanwhile, Benteen would be posted between Custer and Reno to prevent the natives from escaping. As crafty as his tactic was, it failed miserably. Reno attacked on time from the south, while Custer was still working his way up the river. Reno's men were quickly outnumbered, and he was forced to stop charging in order to prevent being trapped. Within 10 minutes of fighting, Reno and his men began to retreat. It was then that Custer attacked. His charge allowed Reno to escape, but the massive retaliation by the natives forced Custer and his men back up onto a ridge. Encircled, Custer ordered his men to shoot their horses and make a wall. Within less than an hour, all of Custer's men had been killed. However, Major Reno's forces and Captain Benteen's were able to escape.
Despite the total annihilation of Custer's forces at the Battle of Little Bighorn. After the battle, Custer was mostly portrayed as a hero who tried to save lives while attempting to complete the mission. First of all, to better understand the hero portrayal, one must consider the battle in its context. The country was deeply involved in manifest destiny, which caused many people to rush out west for wealth. This expansionist attitude of Americans helped to keep Custer's positive reputation after the battle. As a result, many Americans viewed Custer's attack as a defense of their frontier interests. Many settlers were looking for sources of wealth. The Native Americans, according to some, were in their way. Because of this attitude, many cartoons were produced that showed Custer as a hero. Custer's wife, Elizabeth Bacon Custer, did a lot more than just mourn the death of her beloved husband. After his death, she wrote 3 memoirs which showed her support for her husband. They showed the life of a general's wife who lived with her husband while he was at war. However, the most significant and most criticized motives of her literary works were her criticisms of Major Marcus Reno, who in her opinion was the reason for the loss in the battle. She claimed that he was a coward. In 1925, Custer expressed these notions towards Reno at his memorial. I longed for a memorial to our heroes in the battlefield of Little Bighorn, but not to single out for honor the single coward of the regiment. These books, Boots and Saddles, Tenting on the Plains, and Following the Guidon, portrayed Custer as a hero. In addition to writing 3 very popular books, Custer toured Europe to ensure her husband's positive reputation. The most significant portrayals of Custer's heroism can be found in the films. The battle was a favorite subject of movies throughout time, especially into the 1940s. Even before the first Hollywood movies, Wild West shows were very popular. Many of these included Custer and his missions as a subject matter. William F. Buffalo Bill Cody was responsible for the popularization of the tragedy of his very popular Wild West shows in the 1880s and 1890s. They helped to bring the battle back to the center of attention.
We're running out of ammunition, General.
Right! No, we're running out of ammunition. I told him this would happen, but he just sat there in the White House and laughed at me. The damn drunkard! This is horrible. We're being wiped out. For Christian America. Let your arrows fly, savages! I am on board! Mr. President! Mr. President, distinguished visitors, honored members of the Senate, taking the Indian as we find him, waving all...
Why don't you shut up?
As the 20th century historian Evan Connell stated, these days it is stylish to denigrate the general, whose stock sells for nothing. 19th century Americans thought differently. At that time, he was a cavalier, without fear and beyond reproach. End quote. Many now recognize him only as an icon of arrogance, narcissism, and stupidity. And many generals of his day, including General Sheridan, his successor in the Indian Wars, labeled him as being an inadequate general who made fateful mistakes preceding the Battle of the Little Bighorn, especially pertaining to his decision to split his forces and attack impulsively with little research on the opposing force. As Major Reno, an officer of his, said, "I had known Custer a long time, and I had no confidence in his ability as a soldier." This is portrayed in the French movie Touché Pas la Flamme Blanche, where he is portrayed as a stereotypical arrogant and brutal American, crazed with power and lustful of supposed greatness. He is often portrayed this way, often with touches of insanity, mad with grandiosity and tyrannical in his will to showcase his superiority on the battlefield. In movies like Little Big Man and Little Bighorn, this caricature is more blunt, in order to show the viewer Custer's inadequacy at the helm of a cavalry force. Furthermore, he is cited by many Native Americans as a source of white racism against the native races, and an example of American brutality. After the annihilation of their culture, in many ways sparked by the massacre at Little Bighorn, the Native Americans were in need of a scapegoat, and they found one in the vicious egomaniac General Custer.
Sitting Indian style in the distant grass plain, visions of Custer's skull as an incense ashtray. Sweet grass and sage by the spearhead's blade, blazing arrows in the sky lit by clear red flames. Rivers crystal blue, lakeside by caribou, no room for error, true, my canoe fits too. My heart chambers pump like a Mayan war drum. Tomahawk, 2 clubs combined with 4 guns. Gather in the Sioux and the Cheyenne too. Counter-attack and destroy Mr. You-Know-Who. Me and Sitting Bull, finna put this dude in the ditch. Wrap him in buckskin this night on June 25th. The Nina would be bound and then slammed to the ground. The painter would be sunk and nowhere to be found. The Santa Maria would be safe and sound. Forced to make a 180, have to turn around. This was the stand that replenished the land. Little bit of perfect land for the woman in land. Little bit more reward and he ain't home. Moccasins ripped, torn, old, young, and newborn. Battle of Little Bit. This was the stand that replenished the land. Little bit of perfect land for the woman in land.